personally received enough information for me to believe that we're going to need a ban.
Changes are on the way for cell phones in schools. The process carefully being considered after months of hearing from different voices.
School districts have asked for this. Students have asked for this. Parents have asked for this.
But it's not as easy as it seems, from how it will be enforced to the response it will receive.
I really think that being able to have my phone in school, there's a lot more than just the social media and wasted time on it.
The word is not ban, the word is restriction. I think that's important, and I think the other thing would be consistency. I think those two words, restrictions and consistency, is what is really going to need to happen in order to do this effectively.
A few months into this school year, districts are waiting on the state's next move while working off a patchwork of rules specific to their own schools.
We will get to a point where I can announce with finality what we're going for. I still want to continue hearing more voices.
Tonight, we're hearing from some of the biggest voices in our community.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christy Casciano.
I'm Jeff Kulikowski. Thank you so much for joining us here. Cell phone use in school, certainly a hot topic for many over the last several weeks. Some calling their presence a distraction, others say they're a necessity.
And we want to welcome our school superintendents here. We have three of them joining us. Tony Davis from Syracuse City School District. We have Rob Price from Onondaga Central and Tom Calabufo from Central Square. We appreciate you being here. Let's get this conversation started.
Yeah, let's start right here. And Tony, since you're sitting directly to my right, and we want to ask each one of you, what kind of policy do you have right now in terms of cell phone use in schools? Tony.
We just have a personal device policy that really just speaks to, it's really by building, and really it's just a matter of students aren't allowed to really use it in classrooms unless the teacher allows that. But it's not specific to not having them.
Okay.
So they can use them in the halls. They can use them in the lunchroom. They can use them outside.
Yes.
The school, on school grounds. Okay. And go ahead.
At Onondaga Central, we have a similar policy. At the junior, senior high school, we have a red zone, green zone, and where students can use it and where students can't use it. And then the teachers have the autonomy within their classroom. If they see an educational purpose for the phone during instruction, they will allow the kids to take it out. And then students will have areas within the school, such as the cafeteria, to use the phone. And then in the elementary buildings, it's pretty much the phones are not allowed. But when we get into the upper grade levels, 5th and 6th grade, there might be an occasion where a teacher will have the child have their phone out. But we're a one-to-one district, so most of our applications for education are with our Chromebooks.
Oh.
Okay. What would constitute a red zone?
What's Tom? Oh, you finished up on that?
I was just curious about the clarification.
Yep.
What would constitute a red zone?
A teacher giving a lesson in math class or any class, and they don't want any interference from the phones, so the teacher will designate that classroom for that day as a red zone. Phones will be put away or put in a pocket at the front of the room.
Okay, Tom, let's
So
hear
the
about your
elementary
policy.
buildings, as Rob said, it's really just probably more 5th graders, but they cannot have them in the classroom, so they leave them in their lockers. Again, very small numbers of elementary kids have cell phones in my district. In the middle school, it's a policy, it's out and away during the day, and so it's really not that much of an issue. It is when some of them bring them into the bathrooms to text in there and whatnot, but it's nowhere near the issue that it is in the high school. So in the high school, we don't have a policy. Board of Education can only implement a policy. We have more of a practice. It's very similar right here, and that is that if it's, distracting, a student that keeps taking it out, the teacher will let the parent know, and hopefully the parent would see that and say, then you're not gonna bring your cell phone to school. But we don't have something right now that generates a behavioral referral when a student takes a cell phone out.
So now there's discussion of having a statewide ban. How do you feel about that? How would that work in your school district? Do you want it? Tony, you
want to start off?
Sure.
I think it would be great to eliminate some of the distractions in school. And I think phones create some of those distractions. I think there's a lot of complications that go along with a ban. And the most thing that I'm worried about are the relationships that we could jeopardize. Because the minute you tell a family who says, I want my kid carrying their phone, they can't carry their phone, that's going to create a relationship issue. So those are the pieces that I'm worried about, as well as the liability issues that go along with if something happens to that phone in our possession, who's paying for it? And these phones they're pretty expensive these days.
Legitimate concerns.
So I would just jump right into what Tony just said. Not only the relationships with the families that have this feeling that they have to be connected to their children if something were to happen, but also the relationships that the teachers have with the students. So we have a lot of teachers right now in the high school. It's an 80-minute block. They've got great relationships, great classroom management. You know, there could be after 40 minutes, the kids get, you know, a 2-minute break. They have to go to the bathroom, whatnot, and it works. There are other classrooms where I can tell you right now from the surveys that we put out, the overall consensus among our teachers is more in favor of a ban. Only because of the distraction like that Tony just said. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that cell phones do pose a distraction.
Rob, I'm interested because words seem to be very nuanced. Ban, restriction, practice, policy, things like that. How would something coming down from the state work with what you have already in place? Would it potentially disrupt what you have? Should it really be up to each district to determine what is the right level to go? Maybe something that works for Tony doesn't work for you, works for Tom, doesn't work for Tony.
If it's a word ban and we take that literally, then we can't have cell phones in school, whether they have to stay in their locker or their backpack. That's different than what we're doing now. Right. And we have, the staff does a great job at OCS, at the junior senior high school in managing that red zone and green zone. It's not perfect, but nothing will be. But I think one of the challenges from a statewide ban or restrictions, whatever adjective they use within, if it's legislation, what does that mean everywhere across the board? And yes, there will be some consistency, but the enforcement of that, I think it will be just as challenging for the school districts who have, like OCS, who has a code of conduct regulations for the use of the cell phones and not to use them. It's all about enforcement.
And right now, we don't know what the state is thinking as far as a ban. You haven't heard from the state as far as, here's what we're thinking. This is what we want all school districts to do, right? No guidance yet.
No guidance.
Okay. So we're just guessing.
So Tom, you brought something up, and it just kind of came up with what Rob was saying, enforcement. Teachers would like to have you do away with it, but my guess is they don't want to be in the business of policing it every single second. They're there to teach. So whatever we put in place, who enforces it?
So NICE has just put out their proposals, and one of them clearly states that the educators, the teachers, shouldn't be, you know, having the ones that are being the ones that have to enforce this. So the teachers are the ones in the classroom. So I don't, unless a student kind of just self-polices themselves when they take it out and text and then say, on it, here's my phone. I don't see that happening. So I worry that some teachers will have to stop teaching to disrupt the rest of the class that aren't abusing cell phones to constantly have to reprimand students that are taking their cell phones out. That is a concern for me as someone that really, you know, cares about the instruction and the continuity of a lesson. Is that constantly going to be disrupted because teachers then would have to enforce a policy if it's put in place.
Yeah, and that kind of defeats the purpose, right? Because we're supposed to cut down on disruptions. And now this could add a new layer of disruptions for the teacher.
Just to piggyback on what Tom said, is no matter whether it's state legislation or it's an individual district's position on some type of restrictions on cell phone, if it's not done as a team approach with parents, the school board, teachers, and administrators, the enforcement of whatever it is whether it's a board policy, a state legislation, or within the code of conduct, they're only as good as the paper that they're on then if there's no buy-in by staff and teachers and parents, because we know that parents already say to us, well, I need to get a hold of my child in an emergency. And with a ban, it doesn't sound like they'll be able to.
All right, we got to take a little break.
Great topic to come back to, right?
We're going to take a little break because this is a great conversation, and you've proven to us, all three of you, there's a lot to talk about here. So we have more ahead. We're going to hear from you and some of the questions that you've submitted surrounding cell phone use in school. So join us right after Jim's forecast.